For more than 11 years, the world has searched for answers in silence. An aircraft that simply vanished. 239 lives erased in the blink of a satellite. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 was not just an aviation mystery. It became a symbol of how fragile our understanding of the world truly is. For over a decade, oceans were mapped, satellites recalibrated, and nations united in a search that stretched across hemispheres. Yet, what no one expected was that the truth would resurface not through governments or agencies, but through a lone scientist who refused to let the story end. When he opened a recovered fragment of the plane's wreckage, he didn't just find twisted metal. He found something inside that would shake the foundations of what we thought we knew about MH370, about its final hours, and about the people who were still trying to speak from inside the dark. The night of March 8, 2014, began like any other. In the cockpit of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah and First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid prepared for a routine red-eye flight to Beijing. The Boeing 777 was fueled, the systems checked, the cabin calm as passengers settled under dim lights. At 1:19 a.m., air traffic control received one last transmission. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Seconds later, the transponder went dark. Civilian radar lost it entirely. But military radar saw something else. A ghost image making a sharp turn westward, crossing the Malay Peninsula before disappearing over the Andaman Sea. It wasn't a technical failure. It was smooth, controlled, deliberate. Within hours, families crowded airports in disbelief, watching arrival boards that still said, "On time." When officials finally admitted the plane had vanished, the world realized that in an age of satellites and 24-hour surveillance, an entire jetliner could still disappear without a trace. What followed was the largest and most expensive search in aviation history, a search that uncovered everything but the truth. As governments pulled funding and satellites went silent, one man refused to stop searching. His name was Blaine Gibson, a former lawyer turned explorer who had no connection to anyone on the flight, only an obsession with finding what others had missed. While nations gave up, Gibson walked the shores of Madagascar, Mozambique, and Mauritius, guided only by ocean current maps and a conviction that the sea still held the truth. Piece by piece, he found it. Composite panels, cabin fragments, interior debris, all belonging to MH370. Each discovery confirmed one haunting reality. The wreckage had drifted for years, untouched, whispering of a tragedy that didn't fit the official story. Some pieces bore heat damage, others showed pressure fractures from within, as if something inside the plane had torn outward. His work caught the attention of German aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey, who approached the mystery from the sky rather than the shore. Using radio wave anomalies recorded by global amateur networks, he claimed to have traced MH370's path through invisible electromagnetic fingerprints. Together, Gibson and Godfrey connected fragments of metal to data in the clouds, and what they found suggested something terrifying. The plane hadn't fallen uncontrolled. It had been guided, almost gracefully, to its death. Years later, a single discovery reignited the entire case. A corroded piece of landing gear, known as the trunnion door, was found off the coast of Madagascar. At first, it was catalogued as just another fragment, but when forensic engineers examined it under microscopic analysis, they were stunned. The metal wasn't bent inward, as expected from ocean impact. It was forced outward, as though an explosion or massive internal force had blown from inside the aircraft. Even more disturbing, the hydraulic assembly showed that the landing gear had been deployed at the time of the breakup. In every water landing procedure, pilots are trained to retract the gear to minimize damage. The fact that it was extended suggested the opposite, that someone intended for the aircraft to shatter upon impact. To experts, that meant only one thing: deliberate action. The door, like a silent witness, told a story of precision and control, not chaos or mechanical failure. Forensic simulations revealed a chilling possibility. The gear was lowered intentionally to maximize destruction, to ensure there would be no survivors and little floating debris. This detail, buried deep in reports, transformed the narrative. MH370 wasn't lost to malfunction. It was executed with calculation. When analysts revisited the recovered satellite data years later, they uncovered something no one had noticed before: a faint digital ping sequence sent hours after the last known transmission. The signal didn't match any emergency code. It wasn't automated. It looked intentional. Encrypted within it was a pattern resembling coordinates, as though someone on board had tried to send one final message to whoever was still listening. When decoded, the signal corresponded to a region deeper than any previous expedition had explored, an abyss where sonar fades and light cannot reach. Even more haunting, fragments of flight data recovered from the aircraft's internal memory revealed a manual override sequence, suggesting at least one conscious person was in control hours after the world believed everyone aboard had perished. Was it Captain Zahari's final attempt to guide the jet into oblivion? Or a desperate signal from someone who wanted to be found? Experts couldn't agree. But when the scientist analyzing the data reconstructed the final sequence, he reportedly broke down in tears. "Someone wanted to be found," he whispered. "They were still trying to talk." In early 2025, an independent expedition funded by a coalition of scientists and private investors set sail toward the coordinates hidden in the encrypted data. The crew was small: oceanographers, data analysts, and a handful of engineers. But their mission was monumental: to reach the uncharted region believed to hold the wreckage of MH370. At 4,200 meters below sea level, they deployed a fleet of deep-sea drones equipped with adaptive sonar and AI-assisted LIDAR mapping technology. The darkness swallowed everything. Temperatures dropped close to freezing. Then, just as the team began to doubt, the drone's scanners detected something unmistakable, a shape too symmetrical to be natural, resting atop a narrow ridge in the ocean floor. The outlines were faint but undeniable: fuselage sections, wing fragments, and what appeared to be the forward cabin of a Boeing 777. The coordinates matched perfectly. After 11 years, they had found the unthinkable: the remains of Flight MH370, untouched and preserved by the crushing silence of the abyss. But as the drones approached, they began receiving faint electromagnetic interference, static pulses, rhythmic and precise, like the heartbeat of something still alive. When the drone's floodlights illuminated the interior of the fuselage, the crew expected nothing more than corroded metal and fragments of machinery. What they saw instead left them speechless. The cabin was eerily intact, the seats still aligned, oxygen masks dangling like pale ghosts in suspended time. Objects floated gently in the still water: headphones, a child's shoe, a cracked tablet screen frozen on a half-written message. Everything was preserved as if frozen in the instant of disaster. But then the lights caught something strange: thin, crystalline structures coating parts of the interior walls, glittering under the beams. When samples were analyzed remotely, they revealed a compound unlike anything found in aviation materials, formed by a reaction between synthetic polymers and extreme subthermal pressure. It was as though the plane had fused with the ocean itself, becoming part of the seabed. Even more chilling, one of the cockpit doors was sealed from the inside. The controls were locked, power systems dead, yet faint traces of heat still lingered near the flight deck. Thermal signatures that should have dissipated years ago. Something inside was still generating energy. The lead drone maneuvered through the narrow corridor toward the cockpit, its cameras shaking as pressure currents tugged at its frame. When it reached the pilot's seat, the entire control panel was intact, though dark. Both yokes were in neutral position, autopilot disengaged. Lying beside the captain's chair was a handheld flight data recorder, an emergency backup designed to store short bursts of cockpit information. Somehow, it had survived. The scientists retrieved a data fragment, its encryption partially intact, and ran it through onboard decoders. What emerged was a series of audio bursts, distorted by pressure but unmistakable. A human voice, calm, composed, and deliberate, saying, "If someone finds this, we didn't crash." Then static. The recording repeated 3 times, each version more corrupted than the last. There was no distress, no panic, only an eerie acceptance, as if whoever spoke those words had known exactly what was coming. When the researchers synchronized the file's timestamp with satellite data, it aligned perfectly with the moment MH370's transponder went dark. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a message, a warning sent before the world even realized the plane was gone. As the drones continued scanning the fuselage, one of them captured something impossible near the rear cargo hold, an intact cylindrical container embedded into the aircraft's structure, a piece no one had ever seen listed in the Boeing 777 schematics. The metal was not standard aviation alloy. It was denser, almost reflective, emitting faint radiation at low frequency. When scientists analyzed its surface, they found micro-inscriptions, patterns resembling binary code, etched directly into the metal. Inside the cylinder, sensors detected a faint energy signature still active after 11 years underwater. It pulsed in intervals matching the same pattern as the satellite handshakes detected the night the plane vanished. Whatever was inside that container was transmitting data then, and possibly still was. The scientists debated whether it was a secret prototype, military cargo, or something far more advanced. But one detail stood out. The manifest from MH370 listed a classified consignment, weighing precisely the same as the object. For years, no one had questioned it. Now that sealed container sat silently in the wreckage, proof that the story of MH370 might never have been about a crash at all, but about what it was carrying. When the containment capsule was finally lifted from the wreckage, the ocean seemed to tremble. The scientists knew what they were doing was forbidden, breaking a seal designed never to be opened, but after 11 years of silence, the need for truth outweighed the fear. As the metal chamber was brought aboard the research vessel, instruments began to spike, radiation, magnetic fields, even ambient temperature. It was as though the object itself was alive. The lead researcher, Dr. Hannah Lyra, ordered a partial scan before anyone touched it. The results froze everyone in the room. Inside the cylinder wasn't machinery or data drives, it was biological. Suspended in a thick amber-like fluid was a small capsule containing organic tissue, perfectly preserved. The DNA sequence was unlike anything recorded in human databases, showing patterns that seemed to rewrite themselves in real time. When one of the scientists ran a spectral analysis, he whispered, "It's not from here." Moments later, the ship's power systems began to flicker. Devices malfunctioned, compasses spun aimlessly. The object emitted a low rhythmic pulse, 37.5 kilohertz, the exact frequency of the MH370 black box. It was then they realized the signal that had drawn search teams for over a decade hadn't been the plane's distress beacon. It was this. The black box had never transmitted. The energy beneath the Indian Ocean had. Whatever this object was, it had been sending a call through the wreckage, a voice masquerading as a human-made signal. For years, the world had been listening, but to something else entirely. Within hours, communication with the vessel was lost. When contact was re-established 3 days later, the ship was adrift, its crew disoriented and half of its data erased. Only one message remained in the mission log, a single audio recording from Dr. Lyra. Her voice was trembling, barely audible through static. It was never a crash. They found something, and it took them that was the last anyone ever heard from her. Weeks later, the recovered capsule and all related data were seized by international authorities. The official explanation called it an unidentified experimental container, unrelated to the crash. Yet the black box frequency, 37.5 kilohertz, suddenly vanished from all global sonar networks. Silence. The pulse that had haunted the world for 11 years simply stopped. To this day, the object remains classified, its coordinates erased, its existence denied. But fragments of the recovered data leaked through encrypted scientific networks. A single image showing the cylinder cracked open, its contents missing. Some claim the tissue was human, others say it was something older, something that had no place inside a commercial aircraft. What's undeniable is this. MH370 didn't disappear because of failure or sabotage. It vanished because of what it was carrying. And now, somewhere in the depths of the Indian Ocean, something waits. The signal may have gone silent, but silence, after all, is just another kind of message. So if this story made you question what really happened to Flight 370, don't look away. Subscribe to this channel. We uncover the truths the world isn't ready to hear. Turn on notifications, because when the next signal rises from the deep, you'll want to be here to see it. Share this with someone who still believes MH370 was just an accident. And tell me in the comments, what do you think they really found inside the plane?